Is there some fear like women are suddenly taking something by finding out that we're autistic too? What do I, as the mother of 3 autistic girls and at least one, probably 2 autistic boys, who is also autistic myself, think about this whole idea that women are only saying they're autistic because it's trendy? You can probably guess. It's total and complete. I went back and forth over whether or not I was going to talk about this, and I guess I am. Here we are. But it was this guy on Twitter the other day who I'm not even gonna put his name out there because he doesn't deserve any more attention than he's already gotten. But basically it was just some guy who said that women claiming to be autistic is basically the new women appropriating nerd culture of the early 2000s or 2010s, I can't remember, whichever it was, and that they basically do it so that they don't have to develop their own personalities. And then it sparked off this whole thing, obviously, because he's wrong, and everybody in the world was responding back to him, although some people were agreeing, and that's where we're starting today. Some people were agreeing with him, many people were disagreeing. Probably guess where I stand. I hate this because as it is, there's so many barriers to diagnosis. And in my case, I feel like I sort of lucked out into a diagnosis by finding a doctor who happens to be really knowledgeable in women and autistic women, and I happened to be in the right place at the right time and I was diagnosed easily. But so many people aren't, and there's just so many barriers to diagnosis, which is one of the many reasons that self-diagnosis is embraced so completely as valid in the autistic community. And some of the arguments that I saw spinning off of this particular post were just mind-boggling to me. I saw one woman who claimed that if a person masks, then they can't be autistic because no autistic person would ever mask. I mean, there were some gems in this conversation. She just clearly had no understanding of how masking is an act of self-preservation for so many people. However, the thing that I found interesting is the next day I was going through my comments, and there were comments in my spam and comments that were held for review and comments that had gotten through too, and there were multiple comments questioning, and I thought this was interesting, the diagnosis of Tessie and Maggie. And okay, so when I get comments questioning my diagnosis, which happens, and it's happened recently from like autistic men, neurotypical men, neurotypical women, whatever. When I get comments like that, I'm not surprised. That's expected. I'm verbal. I don't find that surprising. I expect that. It is what it is. When I get those same comments that are aimed at Sadie, again, I'm not surprised. When I get those comments aimed at my 4-year-old who can say less than 10 words, or Maggie, it always kind of gives me pause because their level of needs is much greater and they are amazingly wonderful. They are also more obviously to the outside world autistic than the rest of our family. Like, people turn and stare and watch them when we're out. People notice that there's a difference, and so usually there's at least that assumption that like people will recognize it because they can see the difference, whereas the rest of us blend a little bit better. For neurotypicals, like, they can't see it quite so obviously just at first glance. So I thought it was interesting, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I don't get those comments at all about Patrick. I've probably gotten dozens of comments questioning whether or not Maggie's really autistic. I've gotten maybe up to 100 comments questioning whether Tessie's really autistic. I have gotten 0 comments questioning whether or not Patrick is really autistic. And Patrick speaks clearly. He passes as neurotypical generally when we're out. Hi Maggie, she's looking through the window at me into the room I'm in. I think I found it especially interesting when I saw the agreement of some of these people and the comments that a lot of these people were making about women and autism that I guess sort of surprised me in 2020. I guess nothing in 2020 should really surprise me at this point. And honestly, I don't think it is really that much of a women and men thing, a lot of these differences, especially having two very verbal boys. We're still waiting for James's diagnosis, but I'm pretty sure that when he finally gets evaluated, he's going to have one. I think in many ways, autistic people, both men and women, both boys and girls, who are able to mask do because it's safer for us, because the threat of violence when you're different is there. It is. And there's definitely the social ostracism side of things that exists when you are different. But the world is also more dangerous for people who are different. And that can be a huge motivator for putting on your very best neurotypical look and acting like everyone else as closely as you can. And maybe sometimes girls are better at that because there's a little bit more of, well, boys will be boys and girls are taught manners a little bit more directly. Maybe in some ways that's why girls are a little bit better, because manners get hammered into us a little bit more when we're little. I just find it interesting. I'm not quite sure what the motivation is. Is there some fear like women are suddenly taking something by finding out that we're autistic too? There isn't room for different genders of autistic people in the world. It was a very odd tweet to me, but I'm a YouTuber that finds Twitter totally intimidating anyway, because I just can't be that brief. I have to go because I have to go make lunch, but my kids watched a video about me saying I talk too much, and they totally agree. James especially, he's like, yeah, Mom, you talk too much. So there you have it. Anyways, I better go. I'm sure I have more to say about this, but my time is up. It's lunchtime. So that's it for today. If you like this video, we'd love it if you give it a thumbs up, and if you're interested in all things autism, we'd love it if you'd hit subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.